Welcome to Dental Brain Crops. I'm your host, Chelsea Myers, and today I'm joined with Justin Marti. Justin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Justin and I crossed paths, and he's got a legal and dental background. And Justin, actually, I'm just going to let you introduce yourself.
All right. So Justin, and I'm with Marti Law Group, which is my law group, I guess. And I'm an attorney, kind of an accidental attorney, I feel like, and I can back into that story.
Okay.
I think I'm an entrepreneur, kind of at heart, and that's what I am, no matter what field or endeavor I'm in. But yeah, somehow found myself in the practice of law, and it's been a fun journey so far.
Okay. So talk about that. So, did you start out in law or did you start out in dental? How'd that all work out?
Yeah, so law was never even on my radar. Kind of like I was not one of these, growing up, I wasn't like I'm gonna be a Supreme Court judge. Never even crossed my mind. So I guess to go all the way back, I come out of UConn, University of Connecticut, undergrad. I'm a finance major, and planning that I'll be on Wall Street at some point. I end up in Boston, and I was working. With Capital One doing patient financing. So kind of similar to Care Credit and folks who are familiar. I was out there kind of the post college like glory years,
Mhm.
and I'm training providers and their teams on how to sell treatment and how to use patient financing as a means to do that. And I ended up establishing a relationship with a dentist, actually a brother sister team. And so, they had this vision of we want to grow our brand. They had a couple of kind of small offices outside of Boston, and they
Mhm.
wanted to grow it. And, I think the entrepreneur in me was like, why not? I was 25, 26. And so quit my job and gave up my company car. And, my family was like, what's wrong with you? And the only thing I knew about dentistry really is my mother was a dental hygienist for 30 years and I had never had a cavity.
Yeah.
Um, that was the extent of my knowledge. So, but yeah, so we partnered up, we joined forces, we opened an office in like central Massachusetts. Um, and learned everything. I mean, soup to nuts, from building out the facility ourselves to hiring doctors and insurances and just all the fun things that come with that. And some other partners joined on, and so I moved down. I'm now in Connecticut, in right outside of Hartford, Connecticut, and moved down here. We just kept opening and opening and opening, and
Mhm.
it was this kind of wild 12-year journey. And when we sold the business in 2018, we had 45 locations. We were in 4 states. It turned into this major organization. And I guess what now we call a DSO, although, in 2006 or seven, like I would not have known what that was if you told me. But essentially that's what it became. Um, for some reason along the way, I was like, I need more. I need
Mhm.
like, I need some sort of like mental, it's just very personal kind of journey. Like I need some sort of like, mental stimulation. I mean, which is, people laugh, right? Because they're like, well, you had this huge organization, but I had really put the pieces in place and the managers were there and the directors and
Mhm.
everyone. And I was like, I still need to challenge myself. So I feel like the logical thing would be go do an MBA. But for me, it was, I want to do something different. And the idea of a law degree, a JD popped into my head. And I'm like, that's kind of interesting. So I start going to law school, and no plan again on practicing. Just found it super interesting and wanted to push myself. But anyway, again, fast forward 12 years and we sold our DSO, and I kind of found myself at this major pivot in life and sitting there with this law degree. So here we are, and it's been a wild ride.
Okay. So I'm going to slow it down just a little bit because you just made it sound so easy. But so you partner with your friends, and then all of a sudden you have 45 locations. Talk me through that just a little bit, because figuring out and the systems and then implementing them and making sure that they all run and function, well-oiled machine, even when you're not anywhere in sight.
Right.
How did you figure all those pieces out?
It's such a great question. And I say that because and I'll get to this probably in a bit, but now as having a law firm, I'm like, I'm missing so much of these things that I know I need, like, and I know I
Mhm.
need them. And like, why don't I have the systems in place? And it's been an issue for us being able to scale the way I want. And I look back and I'm like, but I had them before. So I know what I need, right? And I know the people I need to put in which place, but I haven't done it. So I found a lot of value in, having partners, and everyone kind of had a different skill set. um, for me, I feel like I'm an operational person. Like I just love getting into the
Okay.
weeds of the operations. And so,
Mhm.
um, like any business, initially it was kind of just DIY, right? Do it all yourself, everything other than the dentistry. Um,
Mhm.
and then, from that, in order to really scale, you kind of start to realize, all right, we need documented systems. Like I can't, if I'm not here one day, or if I have a person, backfilling, or I have a someone covering my office from another location that they need to know what to do. Um,
Right.
so we had a heavy push to just like document everything, put systems in place and test them and see if there's issues, to the point, we had a whatever, probably 200, 300 page handbook of, this is day one of being a dental front desk,
Mhm.
open to that page and let's go. Um, and we almost kind of, I would say, emulated like a franchise model,
Okay.
where after a while it becomes a little bit plug and play. You check your demographics, of course. We did all de novo locations, so everything was new. I think in today's market, I probably would go about it a little differently, but at the time, we were just like, do the market research, find the demographics where we fit, and let's open. And again, plug in those systems, and really, like I said, kind of a page out of the franchise handbook, just the way we managed it regionally and how we scaled. So certainly, it wasn't the easiest. I mean, we've had locations that we had open that were on paper, they were fantastic, right? Like this market is exactly what we need. This
Mhm.
is where we go. We're going to hit a home run, and it's a dud. It's just you open your doors and there's no patients, and you're marketing and no one's responding, and your doctors are looking at you like, okay, so what are we doing here? I've been sitting idle
Mhm.
for 4 hours in the back. Um, and that was just part of it. Part of the growing pains, I think, is like learning that no matter what something looks like on paper, you've got to be able to adapt. um, and we sold a couple locations along the way that just didn't kind of work out after a couple of years of trying. So I always try to tell people that. I'm like, listen, you look at me or you look at us, and it seems like we had this huge success, and we did, but there was plenty of failures along the way, that people don't see, or very few people see, I guess, And
Mhm.
so it's cliche, but I know I learned so much more from those failures than than a lot of the successes.
Yeah, and I think we're coming around on that, posting, talking, sharing more about the failures and the part of the journey that that is. But they're not the prettiest posts, and so they're not the ones you're most excited to get out there and share. But talk to me about that. Like, what is something? So you talked about maybe having a bad location, or not necessarily bad location, inappropriate for your model location. Or anything else. Like, talk to me about something that was definitely a growing pain that benefited the growth of your organization.
Um, yeah, I think, I guess to pause there, like I'm a very transparent individual, and I think that's why we kind of initially connected and
Yeah.
on a higher level. And so I guess even going back before, we had this 45 location DSO. I mean, I, as a youngster, had a lot of, mental health struggles and anxieties. And my brother passed away when I was 20, and it was my best friend and your big brother. And so that definitely exacerbated things and brought a lot, and again, I know we have somewhat of a similar story in this kind of,
Mhm.
unfortunately, this early loss experience. But like from that came a lot of mental health struggles, and kind of always this sense of like, um, feeling lonely, right? And um, just struggling with like your value, my value and self worth and those sorts of things. So That's obviously much bigger than, what do we struggle with operationally at a DSO. But I think that always drove me personally. It's always driven me, and it's like I need to channel this energy somewhere and
Mhm.
feel good about something. And so for me,
Mhm.
business, like putting my energy into business and just going all in, um, really helped me and kind of helped me stay centered when things would get tough or get kind of dark. And
Mhm.
um, so obviously it's a much bigger, you know, um, matter than just an office that you put in a poor location, right? I mean, it transcends all of that, and that's carried over to life now, to my practice now. I mean, at one point we had discussed challenges, right, that you run into, and um, I kind of tell the story to certain folks is that I feel when we sold our dental group, I almost felt like I was this pro athlete going into retirement. And I use that analogy because a lot of pro athletes by like 30 years old they're done, and
Mhm.
from being on top of the world and in front of, I mean, I by no means am I a pro athlete. I'm 41. I play pickup basketball with my son and my knees hurt. So
Yeah.
it's I don't want to draw too many parallels, but I really kind of came out of that like, what an amazing win. You make some money, and not as much as people think you do, but you make some money, and it's like, okay, that like let's do this again. Let's just keep building these things and selling them and building. Make millions of dollars. It's gonna be easy. And there was like 3 years. I mean, we sold in 2018, and honestly, up until late 2020, 2021 early, when I really got things going at the firm, like there was tremendous self-doubt, like some really dark moments of like, are you a one-hit wonder? Like, is that, are you done at 30? I was
Uh-huh.
37 when we sold, and a lot of those, the mental health struggles like started to creep back up, and we see it in my profession as an attorney, dental. I mean, there's obviously some serious issues that don't always get addressed, which is why I thought what you do is absolutely brilliant and so great and well needed. um but yeah, so that's um always been a challenge. And so um I think a little I found a groove, I guess, in my phone's kind of ringing right after after we sold the business, and I'm a licensed attorney, not really doing anything with it, and my phone's ringing now with providers who used to work for us or knew me, and they're like, hey, you're a licensed attorney now, like help me, I want to build my empire. And it kind of just led down this path of, okay, like maybe that's what's next for me, is kind of going down this like mergers and acquisitions, this route
Mhm.
of helping providers buy or build, and eventually exit their business and kind of realize their dream, right? um, we talk a lot about emerging DSOs, and maybe it's just a couple of groups or a couple of locations, and it's like, how do we get to that next level? So I really found kind of a passion in that, and I mean, as an attorney, I felt like I don't know anything. Like, how am I going to help these people do this? Like, what if I mess it up? But using resources, talking to mentors. I have some, I'm fortunate, I have some great mentors, and I was talking to them, and they're like, we do that every day. Like, we've been practicing law for 30 years, and we still wonder, like, am I doing this right? Am I going to totally botch this? And all we can do
Mhm.
is put faith in ourselves, bounce it off of obviously colleagues, make sure things look like we've lawyered them properly, and then find peace in that. And so kind of a very long-winded answer to your not directly on point question, but I just that really has shaped the journey, I think, so far.
Yeah, no, I think it's perfect because one of the things that I'm hearing you say and that I know has been true for me as well is when you're not sure what to do in one area, or you're struggling with some sort of irrational fear, or um, thoughts about inadequacy, you can do the thing that you do know how to do, and then sometimes gain clarity on the other things. They don't have to even be directly related. But if I know how to do this one system or process in my business, I may focus on that, not to be distracting or ignore that there's something, emotionally or mentally or another business aspect that I don't know how to do yet. I'm not ignoring it,
Right.
but this other thing does need to get done. And by generating the fuel and the confidence that I do to do that one thing that I'm sure of, it oftentimes unlocks a door to something else. And that's kind of what I'm hearing you talk about here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I was in such a state of self-doubt, and I can easily go back to that place if I'm, some challenging um case, comes up, or not really. We don't really kind of, I don't go to court, so if I'm ever in court, that's a bad thing. But we kind of call it like a file or a matter, but if something comes up and it's challenging, right? There's a provider buying into another office and there's like kind of funky equity. There's always that moment of like, oh, can I handle this? And then it's just kind of thinking, you know what, you've actually done deals like this a bunch, and you've structured this and
Hmm.
that. You have great colleagues that'll help you do it. So it really has. It's kind of helped me through um, some really humbling experiences. Like I said, we came out on top in my mind, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, now what are you doing with yourself? And so it's kind of helped me it's a new version of me. I think a definitely much more humble version of me, and grateful version
So, what
of
was the overlap there with you being in dental and then you becoming an attorney? Were you going to school while you were still doing the dental thing?
I was. So yeah, so I went for 4 years at night, because law
Okay.
school part time, it's 4 years. So yeah, so we would have our operations going all day, cranking. I'd be traveling all over the place, and then I would head to school. And at that time, right when I started, we found out we were having my son. My son's now 7, and so that was
Okay.
an interesting dynamic as well. Juggling a few things.
Yeah, but if you're an adrenaline junkie, that was probably perfect for you. So,
Yeah, I know. As much as I would complain every day, like,
yeah.
meanwhile, I'm like, I was thriving in it, I think. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
so yeah, so we overlapped, and then I graduated law school in 2017, and then, like I said, we sold the group to a private equity company in 2018.
Okay. Okay. Very good. So now your primary focus is working with dental clients.
Yeah, I love M&A. I mean, I'm a nerd on M&A and private equity, and just I'm constantly consuming any content I can in that area. Not just dental per se. I mean, we do a lot of healthcare work, but certainly it's
Okay.
80%, 85% of it is dental. Um,
Hmm.
just given the background and the um, the folks that I've known through that. And one of the things I think I'm almost like the accidental or the anti-attorney, and sometimes I
Yeah.
cringe when I say that because I don't want to offend anyone. But to me, like, we are not typical. Our law group is tries to be very atypical as far as lawyers, when and I'll be very candid. I mean, when I started law school, to me, a lawyer was a cranky, overworked person who all they know is bill more hours and maybe I'll make money. Like, they don't really know their numbers. They don't know, there's no systems in place. And that actually turned out to be true for a lot of the folks that I know. As much as I love them, I'm like, we talk about performance of their business, and they're like, business? I don't know. And I'm like, you're running a business, right? Like, it's the bit we're lawyers, we have a duty, but just like a dentist has a practice, that's a business. And, above anything else, we're business people. Um, so it's been an interesting experience trying to focus on the business.
Reform that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, I'm far from perfect. I mean, I found myself getting into the groove of exactly what I wouldn't didn't want to be, right? Working 80 hours and stressing, and meanwhile, I'm like, I think there's money coming in. I don't know. Do we need to track? And um, so I've gotten really, I would say, over the past 6 months or so, year, like, really intimately familiar with the numbers and putting systems
Mhm.
into place, and just the whole notion of right people in the right seats. And it's it's cliche, but it's all so true. Whatever business
Mhm.
you're in, there's certain pieces that have to be there. And
Mhm.
that's where I'm at now, and it helps a lot. It helps keep you sane knowing that you're laying the foundation right. And at the old DSO, I think we laid the foundation wrong a number of times, and that's okay. You got to pull it apart and sometimes rebuild it, and that's intimidating. Sometimes you make some hires and maybe they're not what you hoped for, and that's okay. It's all part of growth. So I'm I struggled with like kind of preaching that to people, but then implementing it myself, right?
Mhm.
So now I've taken a step back to focus on building the structure of our organization, and bringing on great people who kind of share the vision. So yeah, it's an ongoing journey, but I think that's why we're entrepreneurs, is because for some reason we love that. Um,
Yeah,
that's where we're at.
that's fantastic, and I love your energy about it too. So, okay, so if somebody was interested in working with you or learning more about the services that you can offer, dental or medical, it sounds like, what would that look like? How would they reach out to you? How would they learn more about what you're doing?
Um, I mean, certainly our website, we try to be pretty active on social media. We are doing more and more speaking engagements. I love the speaking engagements, as I think you do. You just, getting to meet and talk to people one on one is so great. We'll be at
Mhm.
Connecticut State Dental Association, which is in a couple of weeks. I'm going to be in Vegas a couple weeks after that for a med spa. We're kind of part of this med spa group, and they take good care of us, and we speak there. Certainly our website, martilawgroup.com, MARTI, lawgroup.com. And, our thing is, we always like to have a consultation first and really lay out the scope of work, because we like to work as much as we can on what we call like a value-based pricing model. Kind of
Mhm.
similar to people in healthcare. Value-based care is becoming a big, kind of a hot term, and so really what it means is, we try to work off a flat fee as much as we can. We try to see like what's going to go into this, come up with a fair price that considers how much time we need to put in and what the provider really needs. um, I just never loved the idea of like, we do a bunch of work, the doctor buys or sells her practice, and then we hit you with like a shocking bill. So for
Mhm.
me, we've always had a very candid, transparent discussion up front, and it's like, this number might scare you a little bit, right? Usually they're okay, but this might be a good chunk of change, but like, this is everything. If you need us, if you need to text me because you have something you're freaking out about, or you're struggling with the landlord and we need to get this lease into play, whatever it is, like, we're available to you. And
Mhm.
I love that, that I don't have to be like, wait, hold on, doctor, let me start the timer and go ahead, what's the issue. I feel like we can be so much more valuable to somebody in that capacity. And the one other thing I want to add too is that, again, we don't just lawyer, in my opinion.
Mhm.
A lawyer's job. This is another thing I struggled with, was, I felt like a lawyer's job is to kind of scare you and tell you all the things what not to do, right? And be careful of this and be careful of that. And certainly we have a duty to protect our clients, but we still want, like in my group, we still want you to chase that dream, and to be successful, and maybe take, a risk of taking that jump. So we have calls with clients a lot of times. We have a membership model that a lot of our clients will use us just to bounce business ideas, and it's very seldom do I see an attorney kind of doing something like that, where it's like, again, we're your advocate. I want to be your cheerleader. I want to help you get there. And they'll just pay some monthly fee just to kind of almost have us, a mini retainer, and have us able to bounce ideas off. That's a lot of fun. So yeah, those are the ways to track us down, and again, so grateful to have aligned with you and what you guys are doing. I think it's great.
Absolutely. Well, it was a lot of fun talking to you today and having you on your show. And yeah, absolutely. I'll put that information down in the notes as well for all of our listeners.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you too.